So this one has been one we've been trying to get to for a while.
Yeah,
We uh
yeah.
we
Just
talked about it
scheduling issue.
early on. Yeah, but even just like we talked about it before some other ones, and
Yes, we did. Yeah. It's
but
funny because I think this is one of those ones that's a lot of people forget
hmm
exists out there. And it's not that it's a movie that is so obscure because
hmm
I mean you've got one of Hollywood's bigger stars in it and but it's infamously and I think to some degree falsely tagged as a flop. One of
yeah,
the biggest flops in cinema history.
I think the problem behind that view is it's based on the dollar amount associated with it, right? Like that's
Yes,
part of the controversy here. So I
correct.
mean, like it's relative to like X dollars were spent and X dollars were not made.
Correct.
So
Exactly. Um, so yeah, we're talking about, so just to keep everybody up to speed, we're talking about Waterworld this week,
oh,
which is kind of
mhm.
this is a movie that's rife with a lot of controversy behind it.
Love that.
Because there was a lot of behind the scenes drama
Ooh.
that didn't really you didn't really hear a lot about when the movie
hmm
came out. A sort of stuff that trickled out over the years that you started to
hmm
learn
Okay.
happened behind the scenes. But this was a movie coming out summer '95,
Mm.
was like Universal's big summer movie that year.
Yeah.
And Kevin Costner starring in it. That was a
hmm
big deal. I mean,
Yeah.
he was an Oscar-winning actor and director at this point with from Dances with Wolves.
hmm
So
Oh yeah.
he had a pretty good reputation behind him. So this was a
Decent
big,
pedigree, sure.
yeah, so this was a big deal.
hmm
And it was a movie that had gone through a lot of different hands before it finally fell into Kevin Costner's, and he
Mm.
got interested in it. And because it
That
originally
was
was a Roger Corman production,
I
and
was gonna say this was another one of the controversies, right? Like that it like kept
Mhm.
changing hands.
Yes. Because
hmm
initially it was going to be Roger Corman's company, who's infamously low budget. Everything's under
Sure,
like a
our,
certain
our
amount.
our friend from Fantastic Four.
Correct. Yes.
Mhm.
And so it was like, okay, this is going to be whatever, he was going to do. But he said, I can't make this movie for under 5 million, so I'm not doing it. So it kind
Mhm.
of went through a few different hands, and then it was finally, Universal got it. Actually it fell into Kevin Costner's hand. He brought
Mhm.
it in, and Universal's like, yeah, we'll do it. If you're on, we're
Mhm.
on. So it went to production. There was no script finished. There was
Ooh.
drafts finished, but there was
Mhm.
not like a final script of what we finally saw on screen. That was
Mhm.
just sort of cobbled together as the movie went. They brought
Okay.
in two different people to help do this. David Twohy,
Mhm.
who's probably more people would know him from the Riddick films. He wrote and directed those
Oh, okay.
that series, but he
Did
also did a movie called was it Prophecy, I think was called, or was it Prophecy? It was with Christopher Walken where he was the fallen angel. I don't know if you remember that film
Oh,
from the
okay.
90s.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I know of its existence.
yes, he kind of
Yep.
did. He also wrote Backdraft, so he had a good
Mhm.
uh, you know track record. And
Yeah.
Joss Whedon was brought in to script doctor
Really?
while it was in production, and he said it was 7 weeks of hell. Is how he described that experience.
Wow.
Because he said all he did was whatever Kevin Costner said, I want this, I want this, I want this, and he had to write it that way. So he was kind of,
It was kind
boxed
of like
in.
why was he there? Kevin
Yes.
Costner could have just done it.
Yeah, why didn't you just do this? Why did you bring me in?
Yeah.
So, but to think, oh, here's Joss Whedon. And Joss Whedon was right at the time, he'd done Toy Story that was coming out the same year.
I was about to mention that, so I rewatched Toy Story earlier this year because they put it
hmm
back on the screen for an anniversary,
hmm
and I saw his name in the credits, and I'm just like, there's no way. Like, why has this never come up in conversation?
Yeah, yeah,
He was just like quietly in there.
yeah, and it's the only time he's ever, on any Pixar film, really. It's like kind of
Great.
interesting that
Well, and it
they
was like
brought people
that's
in.
like the first one. That's like
hmm
the Pixar film
Yeah,
that got the whole ball rolling.
and I think that was the reason was they were like, we need to make sure this one's good.
Yeah, I wonder if
So,
like that's why he like doesn't have to work still. Like maybe he's still
probably not.
collecting Toy Story royalties.
I would assume so. I mean,
Mm.
there's no reason he wouldn't. I mean, that brought in
Eh.
probably a huge amount of money for him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, But coming back to Waterworld,
Yeah.
the budget original. Now this is how it goes. There's a conflicting story here.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently, Universal said the budget was about $60 million. That's what they said it was, and it ballooned to 175 million when it finally finished
Whoa.
production.
Oh. Oh. So wait.
However, Kevin Costner says when we put it out
Mhm.
there, it was 135 million originally. Then it ballooned to
Mhm.
175. So there's conflicting things going on there.
Uh, but just to circle back and point this out for us for anybody who was listening, you said Roger Corman wouldn't have done it for under 5 million, and that was
Correct.
a non-starter at the time. So,
Yes.
but when they attached Kevin Costner, 135 was okay,
Apparently.
right? Like that's a stark
Apparently.
contrast.
And I think that was the thing is they approved such a huge amount. They were like, crap, this looks bad. We're putting all
Hmm.
this money into this because then there's
Yeah.
already this expectation in it. This is before Titanic, was
Hmm.
this ballooning budget and then finally became
Yeah.
this mega blockbuster. So I think people
Right.
are afraid of that and that idea that, oh my God, we put all this money in.
And we're not gonna get
People
it
are
back.
that's all they're gonna see is we put all this
Right.
money in.
Hmm.
And the movie itself, and even because I was reading a lot of Kevin Costner interviews before this, and he talked a lot about how the movie is flawed. And this was back in '95. The movie's flawed. It's not
Hmm.
perfect, but it's a good crowd pleaser. That's what he was trying to sell it as, and that sort of thing. But he knew going in that it wasn't perfect. This isn't a
Yeah.
perfect film. It's got some warts.
It's
Um,
just sort of ironic because I mean like and I mean we haven't gotten to the meat of this yet, but
mhm,
like just like looking like back having like seen what you saw, it doesn't really seem like there's like a ton that would cost as much as it cost. I mean,
mhm,
especially in 1995.
mhm.
I mean, there's some sets and stuff, and I mean, I understand that, I there was a little bit of like CGI effect stuff, but geez, I mean, even by today's standards, I can't imagine like how much that stuff would have cost
Yeah.
relative to that budget.
The CGI is actually is less than what you think in there. They didn't use as
Right,
much as you
right.
think. Like even the scene
No. Yeah.
where they go underwater,
Yeah.
the two principals, that's all done with optical printing. Like it was done in the traditional way that they had done it for decades.
Right.
So it was a miniature model of a city. They
Hmm.
actually shot both Kevin Costner and Gene Triplehorn separately, then composited them together with an optical
Okay.
printer. So there was no CGI even in that. It was like, like the big monster at that one scene and a few
Yeah.
little things here and there were all they used it for. So it was pretty
Right.
minimal,
Yeah.
even for 95 standards.
I mean, like the one that I remember that kind of stood out in my mind, it wasn't on screen for super long, but like the like flying almost like steampunky and flying ship.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean, that kind of like when you look at it, it looked like CGI, like
Hmm.
just on the screen. But I'm like, again, if that thing's there for a couple minutes, like, again, just not that I don't believe the budget balloon, but you just kind of wonder when you see those things. Like, it almost gives you like a conspiracy theory angle of like, well, where did the money really
Yeah.
go?
Right, exactly. But
So,
I know that the atoll, the big
yeah.
thing, that was very expensive. If
Okay.
I'm not mistaken, I think I read about 22 million just for that set
Oh,
to build it. And because they had to, the problem was is they had to build it so that the Mariner's ship when it came in looked very small in scale. And they're like, we need to do proportionally a certain way. So they
that's
went very
ironic.
large.
Very ironic because you
Yeah.
just said that they did the other scene, like, like the model to
Mhm.
scale.
Yep.
Like you could have done that with the ship and the creature.
They probably could have done that too. Yeah,
Hmm.
because it was, they could have probably built like a smaller scale ship and kind of sailed it in the background and it would
Hmm.
have been fine. But yeah, they were like, we have to build it large. They used all the steel on Hawaii at the time. They had to fly more in from
Oh,
California because they had used
geez.
so much to build that atoll, which is crazy to think that.
So that's where it was. That's where it was filmed, though. It was filmed in Hawaii.
In Hawaii, yeah, off the coast of
Okay.
Hawaii. Though I did
Okay.
read there was the production manager, I believe he was at the time, was from Hawaii. So he was kind of in charge of hiring all the contractors and things like that. And he said they were extremely expensive and that
Well,
everything was expensive. And that might
you
have been
know,
a factor in
you
that.
know what though, and that maybe adds a little bit to like making sense on the budget because I mean, like when you're out in Hawaii, I mean everything's gonna, you're gonna have to
Mhm.
truck everything in.
Yeah,
It's
everything.
everything's gonna go up. I visited
Yeah.
Hawaii once, and I mean, it was I was like 12, and at the time, I mean, gas here was probably like $1.50, $2. It was six on the island.
Holy smokies. Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
so and that's a
that was
huge markup.
then. That was
Yeah.
then. I can only imagine what it's
Mhm.
like now.
Oh
But
yeah, I
you
can
know,
imagine. Right. Yeah. I mean, what a
so
markup though. Yeah. But yeah, that's I think that's a lot of what probably caused it. And they had actually talked about either there, I think they were thinking off the coast of Africa. It's like South Africa they were going to do it, but they went with Hawaii because I think it was just,
they
it
probably
was
would have got
closer to
better tax
California.
breaks in Africa.
They probably would have, and it probably would have saved them some money there,
Mhm.
unfortunately. But so
But live
now
and learn.
the yeah, right. The story itself, kind of is very,
Hmm.
it's that post-apocalyptic thing. It really borrows
Hmm.
heavily from the Mad Max films. And they said that when David Twohy, when he wrote his draft, said, I borrowed a lot from, Road Warrior and Beyond
Hmm.
Thunderdome. Those were a lot of inspiration, which you can see it there, that very steampunky look with that really tattered kind of post-apocalyptic world. But they did something
Hmm.
different here, where you watch something like Mad
Hmm.
Max and a lot of the knockoffs of Mad Max, are the background is always that very deserty, stark landscape like that. This one's got this beautiful, just
Hmm.
blue ocean landscape. It's like so much different in that respect.
Right.
And you kind of like the
Hmm.
way it looks. Like it just is really, really nice to look at. With the
Yeah.
stark contrast of the island, like that steampunk look with the blue of
Yeah.
the ocean. It's really kind of nice in that respect.
Right. And then I mean it adds a different angle in terms of like what kind of resource management they have to do in this post-apocalypse. I mean, like at
Hmm.
least when you have the whole planet, I mean, you're bound to continue to find things, sooner or
Hmm.
later. I mean,
Right.
yeah, stuff will run out, but when you're on the ocean and land is a myth, I mean,
Yes.
like resources
Yeah.
become incredibly finite.
Right. Exactly. And so that's why, and you learn that and they're like, dirt is a huge
Mhm. Yeah.
commodity in this
I
world,
mean,
and
people are willing to trade like anything for it, and like
sure.
I mean anything.
Yep. And then like there's a funny so again, we're post-apocalyptic world. The ice caps have melted and it flooded
Hmm.
all the land, so everybody lives on the ocean.
Hmm.
And you think about that, fresh water is no longer in existence, so they're peeing into these things that are converting their pee into drinkable water, which is
Mm.
kind of an interesting way to start the film. You see that right
Sure.
in the very beginning.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you had that, which makes sense. You have to explain how they're getting
You
fluid
get
because you can't drink salt water.
right.
And then from there, you have, so like most of these types of movies, you have a hero's journey.
Hmm.
So we have the hero who is this unnamed character named the Mariner. That's all he's named.
Hmm.
He's sort of this mysterious guy who just travels the ocean and does these, barters and things like that to sort of get himself through. And he comes to that one atoll, and on that atoll you have this young girl, because you always have that prophesized, a lot of times a child, whether it's a movie like
Hmm.
Willow or whatever. Here's this little girl
Yeah.
who has
Yeah.
somehow this secret to this
Yeah.
mythical dry land. Yeah.
It's very atypical of the like the children are the future trope, and it's it's there's nothing wrong with it.
No, it's a good trope and it works. So they, why not? Let's put it in here.
I I
So she
I
has,
think yeah, I was just say she's got the map on her back,
yes, the
but
tattoo.
I did they ever explain like how she got it? I mean, I know
No.
they explain the significance of it because it drives the most of the plot, but
Yeah, well, actually, they kind of do explain it, and they explain it a
okay.
little more in the extended cuts, which hopefully at some point we can
Mm,
sit down and talk about. But
okay.
there is, because
But in
there
the
is
yeah, I was just saying the
there's
standard version, do they?
yes, the standard version they don't. The only thing
Okay.
you kind of imply from that is that when she gets finally to the end where they find dry land, she just
Hmm.
says, "I'm home." So she's
Like she
there
had
where
come
her
from there.
her family were. Yeah, she's from that area,
Yeah.
but it's like how did that get on there? I don't know, or why she was ever why she ever left there or why she was ever,
Right.
sent
I
from there is
definitely
is
I definitely picked up on that like when she said that and I thought the same thing. And I don't know if it was like something as simple as like, maybe whoever she, her family and whatever her like, kind of went to travel and see what else they could find.
Mhm.
And she for lack of a better term, washes up onto like the floating city there.
Hmm.
Because the majority of the film she's with oh, what's her name? The shop girl.
Yeah,
Um,
Jean Triplehorn's Helen character, Helen.
yeah, it's Helen. So like,
Hmm.
um, and you get a sense that like she's like motherly towards her, but she's not her
Yes,
mother. I mean, like they
correct.
they clarify that like very
Mhm.
very quickly into like their journey
Yes.
with the Mariner.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm curious, at some point if we revisit one of the other cuts, like
Hmm.
that's a big deal to omit from your like main version. Like,
Yes.
say, here's your MacGuffin, but we're not going to tell you like. So at some point, that child had to have had like her back tattooed,
Right.
and
Yeah,
did
when
she
she
like
was,
block
yeah,
out those memories because it was painful?
right.
Maybe.
I
So
wonder.
yeah.
But interestingly enough, the tattoo has
Mm.
there's it's written in like Chinese, I believe,
Okay.
manuscript, which actually, if you translate it, is the latitude and longitude of the actual dry land that they go to.
Okay.
Because the dry land is given a specific location in the extended cuts, which we'll talk
Okay.
about in the future. But
Yep.
it actually does tell you exactly where dryland is, which is kind of interesting. So, but
Okay.
none of the characters could read it, so that would explain why it was a little difficult
Yeah,
to
they're just
find.
trying to get there, for them
Right.
it probably wouldn't like have a whole lot of significance anyway. Like um I think I remember at the beginning it had been like a couple hundred years, right? Like,
Yeah. The
past our
the
time.
the timeline that one of the screenwriters said was it was like around 2500 would be what
Yeah, okay.
they would
That's
establish
that's
it as.
that's what I was thinking in my head. I thought for some reason I was thinking it was either 22 or 25, but yeah.
Yeah.
It
So
was
yes.
enough time had passed where like the
Mhm.
people that were alive don't remember what it was like.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So it's been quite some
Hmm.
time. So, and the world has obviously been this way for some time
Hmm.
at the point of this film. So,
Yeah.
now, so once they're at the atoll, you also are introduced to at some point, certain characters like the atoll
Hmm.
enforcer, who
Hmm.
most of these characters don't have names.
No.
Oddly enough, like the atoll
Hmm.
enforcer has no name. He's the guy with the beard that sort of like the
Hmm.
policeman there.
Hmm.
Gregor, which is the older gentleman who kind of works with
He's
Helen,
yeah,
and
he's like sort of like a historian slash like
yes,
inventor.
yeah. And the little girl's name is Enola, which if you flip it is alone backwards, which was kind of a little thing they added to
Very very
yeah,
cheeky.
yes, very much so. You introduce these characters, you learn this world that these people live in. So when someone dies, they put them in like this muck, and that kind of thing. So you kind of learn the culture of this world, which is kind of cool.
Hmm.
They really
Hmm.
kind of dove. They didn't just say, hey, there's this world. They're like, we're going to
Hmm.
show you all these things, like how this actually operates in this world. And I thought that
Hmm.
was really fascinating. Um, and then
I don't. Yeah.
you learn the
I was
smokers
just gonna.
come.
Oh
So
yeah, the
go ahead.
smokers.
So
No, no,
this is
I was gonna mention them too.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So yeah, the smokers were introduced with at this atoll time too, because they kind of come in and are, I mean, you knew about them a little before because they were introduced in the beginning, but now you're introduced to
Yeah.
the main villain of the story, who is the Deacon, played
Hmm.
with great gusto by
Hmm.
the late great Dennis Hopper, who's really chewing scenery and having a great
Oh
time
yeah,
playing
yeah.
this
He
role. You
was
can
great.
tell.
He was great.
Yeah. But yeah, the idea is, so you have kind of like these two factions. You've got these people that are just surviving on the ocean by collecting
Hmm.
whatever they can and reusing what they can. And then you have the smokers who are just like, let's
Hmm.
wastefully just reuse gas, and we smoke, and we just do everything. They have endless supply of cigarettes, endless supply of like
And
the worst,
and
all these
oil.
things. Right. Like their oil's getting low. And so that's another thing too, is they talk about Saint Joe. That's like they get into the religion and all these things. Saint Joe is so if you're familiar with a little history, they're on the Exxon Valdez. In
Hmm.
1989, the Exxon Valdez was in Alaska
I
and
had the
struck.
spill.
It's had the huge spill, and
Yeah.
Joe, I can't remember his last name. Joe, it's like something, but yeah, the guy that they had in the picture that they showed, that's the captain of that ship. And so they were kind of referring to that whole thing. So there was an underlying theme in this film, about environmental
Hmm.
things, global, even before really, like, just was global warming was really starting to come into like
This is
the
like the extreme of
lexicon.
what can happen when you let the world basically go.
Yeah, and
This
I
is
don't
what
think it
could
was
be.
overly preachy on it, but it had like
No.
those just some kind of those underlying saying, hey, if this
Hmm.
happened, you've got those that are sort of the wasteful and those that are the resourceful,
Hmm.
that kind of survive out there.
Hmm.
But yeah, this is more or less so that kind of sets up what the story is at this point,
Hmm.
once we're in the atoll. And you know,
Basically, I was just say like basically everybody kind of wants the same thing once they like figure
mhm,
out like what Anola's got on her back.
yep,
Everybody wants to like kind of get the dry land and be like sort of like the master of the dry land.
yes,
Except for the mariner, who's kind of
right.
just like you said, he's just there. He kind of
Yeah.
just wants to go on.
And yeah, and there's an interesting thing. Like Kevin Costner talked a lot about this
Hmm.
character, and he said this character was really like, yeah, he's this loner. He's very brutal. He's not like a very, just this kind of guy that's gonna be helpful and things. He really is just he wants to do his own thing. He's surviving.
Hmm.
That's his world.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to the idea of bringing this little kid and this woman onto a ship, not something he's interested in.
No.
So he's and Costner really doubled down on that if when you
Hmm.
watch the film, because there's a lot of scenes where he is extraordinarily just he's a very dominant male. Let's say it that
Yeah.
way.
Oh yeah.
So there's a scene where like the one woman is
Helen.
yeah, Helen is arguing with him. He smacks her with an oar, like right in the head. He's just like bam, like huge oar. Or the part where she harpoons the plane, as we talked about, and it breaks
Yeah.
his mast.
Hmm.
He chops her hair off, her and the little girl, like just because she uses crayons. There
Yeah.
was like
I mean,
it
he he like rebuffs her too, like when she
oh yeah.
tries to like offer herself to him, and he's just
Yes.
like, I'm not interested.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And when I was reading those interviews with Costner, he said when the story was written, like when he read the character, he was very, very like that's how he was. And he says, you have to be consistent with this character. And he says, like, I didn't
Hmm.
want to just be like, he's this way at one moment and then he's something else different, later. He's like, I wanted that consistency of him
Right.
being this brutal, very masculine character. And he really doubled down on that through the film,
Right.
as he went through. So yeah, I think that definitely and there was actually and Al had mentioned this to us when we were talking about this film, is that
Yeah.
he was going through a divorce at this time. So
Mm.
he was very I think he was in that sort of mindset too, of that how the mariner behaved was very easy for him to kind of slip into that role because he was
Yeah, because he was
kind of in
living
that
it.
grim place in his mind,
Yeah.
which created a lot of havoc on the set.
Oh.
um, he conflicted a lot with the director. The director is credited as Kevin Reynolds.
Okay.
Um, Kevin Reynolds had directed. He actually a little history on him. He created a short in college that was called that got the attention of Steven Spielberg, who said, "Hey, let's make it into a feature," which came out in 1985 called Fandango and starred Kevin
Oh yeah.
Costner. So that's where he and Kevin Costner sort of forged
First
their
met. Yeah.
friendship. And in '91, he directed Kevin Costner in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which
Oh.
was another big hit at the time, which has its own level of controversy to it. And then you have then they team up again with Waterworld, and when they actually had a lot of conflict during Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, there was some time where
Oh.
they kind of weren't getting along, but it wasn't to a point where they had come to blows or anything like that. But they when they got together for this film, there was still a little bit of animosity. He had actually recommended Kevin Reynolds, and I think there was still some confliction that the
Hmm.
producer Lawrence Gordon made him sit in a hotel room and kind of work things out before they really got out in the set. And
Hmm.
but during production, that it just kept getting worse and worse to a point where Kevin Reynolds kind of finished shooting, put his cut together, and left the film. He was done,
Okay.
which wasn't the version we got.
Oh.
So Costner said, I want to reshoot a bunch of stuff. Costner put $22 million of his own money into it and reshot a whole bunch of scenes that he directed himself. Kevin Reynolds was known, I believe the quote is, Kevin Costner needs to direct movies that Kevin Costner stars in. So yeah, they kind of their friendship sort of fell apart after that. Though they did They did amend their friendship because they worked together on the Hatfields and McCoys in
Okay.
2012. So they
Oh
did.
wow.
There's a happy ending there, but at
That
that
that was that
time,
was like that's all like a long gap though. I mean, it's
yeah,
that's pushing 20 years.
yeah. But I mean,
So,
yeah, there was a lot of, I guess, bad blood for a while between them because of that.
mhm.
But that I would be interested in knowing what the cut that Kevin Reynolds actually put together was, because I know it's not the cut we
Right.
finally get, but I'd be
Right.
interested to see what he did.
Yeah. One of the other things we haven't talked about yet, and I'm not sure, whose auspices it was under, but I really liked the angle that they took with the whole he's a mutant thing. Like
Yes,
we find out in not too short order that he has gills.
yes,
That he's some
behind
they
his
don't
ears.
yes, and they don't get too into detail about it, but
Hmm.
it follows very similarly behind like and it was, happening at the same time, in our, relative to our time
Hmm.
here. X-Men was kind
Hmm.
of getting
Yes,
more popular because we had the animated series,
yes,
the movie wasn't too far down the line, but the
yes,
whole mutant thing was like an othering, you know.
yes,
And as soon as he gets to society and they figure out what he is, they turn on him on a dime. He's
yes.
he's strung up in a cage, so fast.
Well, yeah, he gets there and they're offering women to him to, let's
Oh
help us
yeah,
breed and
yeah,
this
oh
and
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then
Yeah.
they flip it right around.
Yeah, and yeah, as soon as they figure out he's like a mutie, they're calling him
Hmm.
that, and they're like, "Oh God, no, we don't want anybody to have any contact with you."
Right.
So I just found that like, and personally, like, I actually enjoyed this movie. I didn't
Me
really.
too.
I get that there are issues with it, but
Hmm.
what film doesn't have issues?
Of course. It's
And
a fun movie to watch, and that's why,
yeah, yeah. By the time I was done, I was just like, "Hey, man, this was fun."
Hmm.
But it was just kind of nice to see that, it was maybe like even if it was an unintended deeper layer,
Yeah.
it still, shined through.
Yes, I do. I love that they added that
Mhm.
in there. I thought that gave that character a different level. And it made sense why he became this loner. Because once you see how
Right,
he's treated when
right,
he's revealed as a mutant, it's like, no wonder I don't want to be integrated
right.
into any
And if
society.
he's been like that his whole life, of
Hmm.
course he's not gonna, have any desire, to associate with people who've given him nothing but grief.
Hmm. Certainly. And I wonder
So
if, if this movie
yeah,
had franchised, like if they gotten sequels and things like that, if they had explored that more, if we could have got more in depth of what occurred that made him that,
it
like, was it
definitely,
from his
yeah,
DNA?
yeah. I mean, was it like something like, with like chemicals being all in the oceans,
Right.
is it
Yeah. It
something
would have
that
been
just
interesting.
happened with evolution? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it would have been interesting if
But
it went that route. But yeah, at least in this sense, we got a little taste of, that what
yeah,
would be an X-Men movie in a few years. What we were reading and watching
yeah,
on cartoons on Saturday mornings and in comic books every month. We kind of got a little flavor of that here, and that was fun to see.
yeah.
Because yeah, something that wasn't really tackled in movies prior to this, with that sort of, outside of horror and really low budget schlocky movies, big budget movie that really
Mhm.
kind of explored that, being a mutant, being, and sort of being ostracized for that, was a really cool
Yeah.
take on
I
that.
mean,
And I
you
enjoyed that part
figure
of
you figure the big studios probably didn't want to tackle those weighty issues and like alienate the audience. They're just like, no, no, no. Hey,
it.
just
I
watch this
think
for
that
the
was
fun and the action.
I think that was one of the original notes, is they didn't like the idea of him being that
Oh,
different. But
mhm.
I think Kevin Costner was really like, no, we need to have that for this
Yeah.
character, and pushed for that.
Right.
So
Especially in
it's
a world like this, to have somebody that can go places that other people can't. It
Mhm.
sort of probably opened up the plot settings more, right? Like the ability for
Mhm.
them to go underwater like that would have really
Yeah,
been a lot harder to make sense. Or you're gonna find
yeah.
scuba
So,
gear all
but
of a
it's
sudden.
right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and you think about it, I mean, he's this amphibious character because he could be on land, he can be in the ocean. It's a pretty cool power for this character to have, that you could really do a lot of cool stories and things with that, unfortunately they couldn't explore
I
beyond
I think
this
I just
film, but
realized it.
could have.
I was gonna say I think I just realized it. They were trying to make Aquaman cool long before was a thing.
There you go. Yeah. Or Namor, some
Yeah, either one.
make him cool, which is true. Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's kind of, yeah, that's kind of what they gave us. It was a very
Hmm.
similar type of character. Um,
Hmm.
but as the movie progresses, we see a lot of the relationship between him and Enola starts to, he breaks down his barriers and he sort of softens to her and um,
He
that
calls her friend.
yes. So you start to see, and so I think that was with what Kevin Costner's choices with that, smacking them and cutting their hair and stuff was effective because then when you start to see him become more connected to the little girl, you're like, okay,
Hmm.
he's gonna risk his life to save her, because before he
Hmm.
wouldn't have done that. They'd smoke her stick and be like, nah, oh well, see ya. But
Oh
that
well.
that ability to forge that relationship and see that grow was really was good,
Right.
help the movie along. And I like too that with that just to say too, this movie hits a lot of marks, and we haven't talked much about this, but we have the prophecy, you have the the sort of the look and all that stuff of it, but it also had the cool vehicle. You always have that cool vehicle that they have, and he's got that really
Hmm.
cool ship, the
Hmm.
Trimaran, as it's called, that he zips around in. It's
Hmm.
fast and it's really, the sleek looking ship, which is really just a
Hmm.
catamaran souped up
Hmm.
to be more effective like that. And the sequence,
Hmm.
oh, and a cool little trivia too, the sequence with the plane that's circling
Hmm.
them when
Yep.
the smokers were looking for them and Enola. Jack Black is one of the pilots in that plane in a very early
Really?
role. Yeah, he's
Huh.
covered in schmutz and he's got a goggles on, but that's Jack Black in a very early role at that
Love
moment.
it. Love when that
But yeah,
happens.
it's kind of funny. Yeah, me too. I love those kind of things. You're like, oh, awesome. Before he was who he is, here
Hmm.
he's this working actor just getting himself out there and
Yeah.
in a big budget movie.
Day rate Jack Black.
Yeah, good deal with Jack. Um, So, well, as the movie goes, we get to the point where the smokers finally capture her, the end of the second act, he loses everything. The ship is destroyed. They capture
Hmm.
Enola, but he perseveres. They find the other survivors of the atoll and they kind of team up and he's like, I'm gonna go save, my friend,
Hmm.
Enola.
Hmm.
And these are all scenes too, I believe, that were changed from the original version.
Okay.
The ending where he confronts the deacon and things like that were much different, I believe, in the
Oh,
original version before Costner jumped in and,
okay.
wanted to up it a little more. Because
Okay.
he wanted, I think that sequence where he comes in, he's got the coat, he's got the whole thing, that very, the machismo look as he's going in. It,
Yeah.
it looks awesome. He's walking in and
Hmm.
he's that lone person on the ship facing the deacon. It's a
Yeah.
pretty bold moment at that moment of the movie.
Yeah.
Um, but you see, they they kind of go up against it, and he's got the flare, and he's the threats and all
He's
that
like,
good
you
stuff.
won't
And
do it. And he's just like,
yeah,
okay.
yep, just does it. Which again is perfect for that character because he has
Hmm.
that he doesn't give a crap about anybody else. He is he's self-preserving and
Hmm.
yeah, I'm going to save my friend and she's his friend, but there's anybody else I could give crap, so
Yeah.
his threats are not empty. He's going to do what he says he's going to do.
Right.
um so yeah, but the movie I think has a really, it's a solid movie. It's good action movie
Hmm.
and that's what it was
Yeah.
designed to be. And you
Yeah.
have like the moment at the end where he's up against the smokers is a great climax to the film. And
Hmm.
but ultimately, they defeat the smokers. The ship, let's burn them down, essentially. They have a very climactic explosion.
Yeah.
But then again, after they blow the ship up, there's still smokers coming after them again. And, there's that moment where he shoots her as though she's up in the balloon. She falls over the side. There's a
Yeah.
sequence where he does the bungee jump, which was a big thing at the time. He actually did that himself. Kevin Costner did
Ooh.
most of his own stunts. He said
Okay.
the majority of stunts he would jump in, and he did that himself. Um,
Okay.
the zip line thing, I think from the ship there, that was another one he did himself. And even the
No.
director, Kevin Reynolds at the time, that was one of the sequences that was in there. He had um, performed it himself to show him it was safe. So
Mm.
Costner was in, but I think at the time, like I said, he was, going through everything that he just kind of was like, I'm going all in on this movie. Um, and it was a different movie for him because, I mean, again, he had never done this kind of movie. Like, I mean, he's taken on the role like Bruce Willis, Schwarzenegger, that sort of thing at the time was, the thing, the big action hero.
Yeah.
Um, Before that, Dances with Wolves, Field of Dreams, Fandango, those kind of movies were what he was known for. That, a lot more drama, that sort of thing. So this
It
was a
definitely
big
like
different thing.
it definitely showcased it like some more range for him, which is,
Hmm.
saying something because I mean, like he did, everybody knows and loves him from Dances with Wolves, and that's
Sure.
also pretty like, a wide variety of acting for him. But,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure at
Yep.
that point in his career, he was just like, I can do anything, and
Yeah. And I
that,
think that was
here's proof of that.
that was the appeal of this. And
Hmm.
he really likes this genre, interestingly
Hmm.
enough. And because if like 2 years later, he made a movie called The Postman, which was a
I
post-apocalyptic
I
world.
learned about that while watching this movie
Yeah.
because I was talking to somebody about this, and they said, "Oh, you should watch this other Kevin Costner movie."
Hmm. Yep.
So,
Yeah, he doubled down right in this genre and said, I'm not done with this. I'm going to do another one.
hmm.
So like a couple years later, Postman, and that
Hmm.
was out. The year before this came out was Wyatt Earp, which
Oh, I love Wire.
again, huge, big drama, epic Western drama, which wasn't a huge hit, but
Hmm.
he garnered a lot of good reviews for it.
Hmm.
Um, but even with like some of the movies he had before that, he had a string of movies that weren't big hits, like was it a Simple World, I think was one of them, or Perfect World, and
Hmm.
The War. These were like, and then Wyatt Earp. Those three movies didn't all do very well. They weren't flops per se, but they weren't, huge hits. But
Yeah.
the fact that the studio was still like, yeah, we're gonna dump 135 million on this with Kevin Costner showed he had enough star power at that time,
You're
despite like,
right. I mean, I think the successes outweighed the
yes,
middle. You know what I mean? Like,
agreed.
uh, they looked back and they're like, okay, he did good in this, and this, and they're like,
Hmm.
sure, let's do it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves was a massive hit when it came out. So,
Hmm.
I could
Yeah,
see why they'd be like, yeah, like, we need a good summer movie with Kevin Costner. This is
yeah.
perfect.
Kevin Costner wants to work with us. Great.
Yeah, we're in. We're gonna do this. And
Hmm.
the movie did not flop. Let's be clear too. It was
Hmm.
said that this movie was a big flop. They had a lot of times it was referred to as Fishtar, which referred
Oh
to
my
the Ishtar movie. If you're familiar with Ishtar, which would be a good one to discuss one day, with Warren Beatty and
gosh.
Dustin Hoffman. Did not make a
Hmm.
lot of money. Was supposed to be a big hit. Then you had they also called it Kevin's Gate, which referred to a movie called Heaven's Gate from the early '80s with Chris
Yeah.
Christopherson. That just huge budget, complete flop.
Mm.
So this movie cost, I believe, with marketing and everything, about 234 million by the time
Okay.
everything was said and done.
Hmm.
When the box offices were finished, before video release and everything, it made over 200, about 270 million. So it had
Okay.
made its money back. Not a huge profit, but it did turn a profit.
I mean,
So
40 million is not nothing.
no, so it was not a
Hmm.
massive failure like people had claimed it to be. And because I think they
Hmm.
once the movie came out, they're like, oh, it's not going to make this budget back. It's not going to make it back. But it did. It actually did okay. And
Hmm.
it did, I think once it hit like home video,
Video.
it sort of got that cult following behind it. Like there's people, I don't
Hmm.
think it has like what, it's not like an Evil Dead cult following or something like that, where there's like a really
Hmm.
rabid fan base. But I think there's people that appreciate what this movie brought
Hmm.
to the table, what it brought to screen.
Right.
And
Hmm.
those are the people that still, because I mean, like as we've talked about earlier, they did release these extended cuts of it. Um, the original release of that was when they finally aired it on television. They added 40
Hmm.
minutes back into the movie, which is a
Whoa.
huge, significant amount of footage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so there's and from that, there's actually there's several versions that aired on television in Europe and in the United States. Somebody
Okay.
got together and cobbled this other version called the Ulysses cut together, which is took all the different versions and made an ultimate fan version. And it was so well liked by the studio. The studio actually allowed it to be released. They remastered it and released it on Blu-ray and
Ooh,
4K in the last couple of
mm,
years. So
gonna have to
this is a movie
check that
that,
out for a future episode.
yes, I think we should. It's really interesting to see, to compare the differences of this with that is hugely different. I
Hmm.
mean, it's a vastly different movie. I mean, yeah,
Hmm.
you're getting the same theatrical stuff, but there's so much more to the story that they don't offer in this version. And it
Okay.
was cut, the theatrical version was cut down by the studio and Costner. So they did agree on this final cut of it. And I
Hmm.
think it was because they want, and this is something we'll discuss when we finally get to Superman. Is the
Ooh.
idea is the movie's shorter, you can
Hmm.
play it more on, it plays more in the theater, so you can sell more tickets. You got more show times
Hmm.
during the day, you're going to sell
Sure.
more tickets, and that's the idea. So they chopped it
But
down
also the
significantly.
the the ability for, your average viewer to like sit there and want to watch it. If you
Yeah.
have a really long movie, it
Hmm.
tends to, intimidate people, like, do I have 3.5 hours to set aside for
Right.
this? Or
Yeah,
or,
because
oh, it's 2 hours. Okay, I could do that.
yeah, well, and that's what they cobbled it, about 2 hours and 15 minutes. This
Hmm.
movie was cut down to. So there's 40
Hmm.
minutes, a little more than 40 minutes that were chopped out of this film, almost about an
Hmm.
hour's worth. So there is a lot more story
Hmm.
that we didn't see in this theatrical version. So that, I think that alone really tells that, that somebody would go through the effort to say, let's put together another version, that there wasn't a fan base and there is an interest in what this movie was.
Hmm.
It did hit all the marketing marks too when it came out. There were toys, video games,
Hmm.
comic books. Dark Horse put out it wasn't a direct, like a adaptation of the movie, but they put like a different Adventures of the Mariner. Like they did a four
Oh, okay.
issue series
Cool.
of that. Yeah, and so I mean there was interest in trying to explore that character in the world outside of the
Hmm.
movie. But it not like the toys weren't huge sellers. Um, and the comic book wasn't a massive hit where it got more stories out of it, because Dark Horse was infamous for doing like little 4 issue minis. Then we'll do another 4 issue mini and then another one. It got the one and that was it, and which was too bad.
Hmm.
It would have been nice to see more
Hmm.
stories within that world and with those characters.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the film, he doesn't stay on dry land with the
No.
other heroes. He goes back to the ocean. Um, and he doesn't really explain why. Why doesn't he want to stay? He says it doesn't feel
He's
right.
still a loner.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
But in the cuts, you learn why he leaves. In the extended version, there is an actual reason why he leaves, and he explains that.
To
And
be
I think,
continued.
yes, and I think those are really important because it gives more depth to that character. He's not just this loner, because he's a guy that's his character arced quite a bit because he was this loner that finally, you know, lets his barriers down and becomes friends with this
Hmm.
this little girl and this woman, and does everything, he risks his own life to save him, but then just leaves. And it's kind of
Hmm.
like, really, that's it? You think you would have more investment there, but
I mean, again,
when
if
you
they
realize it.
had come back to this for like sequels or things, like
Mhm.
he knows where they are. He could
Yes.
come back if he
Mhm.
wants to. I don't
Yes.
think it's
Yeah.
like it's an Irish goodbye, but it's not like an Irish forever
Right.
goodbye.
Correct. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And I think that was, and that would have been nice, because yeah, I think
Hmm.
because of the type of person he is, he's so at one with
Hmm.
the ocean that finding it
Hmm.
would be, something he could easily do. I
Right.
think he's the kind of guy that could retrace his path and figure out
Yeah.
where he came from and what he where,
Definitely.
where he was. But
Yeah.
but I mean, overall, how would you recommend the movie?
I would. I would definitely recommend it if one had never seen it, and you're a fan of like action adventure films. If 80s 90s movies do it for you. I mean, there's a lot of like demographics that this could hit, but I enjoyed it. I
Mhm.
didn't you know I didn't really like talk to anybody that like poo-pooed it. I mean,
Mhm.
there were definitely some people that were like, oh yeah, Waterworld, oh, it's the first time you're watching Waterworld, wow. So
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah.
Well, it does have a stigma behind it because of when it came out. People were like, "Oh, this movie's stupid." You know, I went to see it opening day. I was there, and I liked it. I enjoyed it,
Hmm.
and you know,
Hmm.
but the
Yeah.
critics were not kind to it, and you know, it was one of
Hmm.
those things like, oh, you know, Kevin Costner, you know, oh, this sucks, that sucks, type of thing. It was kind of like that. It was in
They
fashion
were like
to
dances with,
trash
did
it.
they call it dances with fish or something? Or
I think that was kicked around, I'm sure,
I bet.
as one of those names. So, but
Yeah.
what I love is that because this is the first time you got to see it, so you're looking at it with
Hmm.
fresh eyes, and again, it's
Yeah.
sort of a generational thing too, where it's outside of your,
Hmm.
you know, when you were younger, it wasn't something that was probably on your radar to watch. So it's good to see a
Nope.
perspective of somebody that
Hmm.
would just kind of pick this up and say, okay, what is this offering me, and is it worth it?
I,
And
I I don't think that there's any movie I wouldn't at least give a shot to, but
mhm.
yeah, I mean at the end of the day, it's something I would also be willing to tell other people to take a shot on now.
I agree. And if somebody told me, you know, I went and saw it and it was terrible, I'd be like, give it another look. I think if you
Mhm.
really look at it with different eyes now, you'd see
Mhm.
it as a much more rounded movie than it was. And I think if when you went and saw it, and I think the same thing happens with a lot of these movies, like Star Wars Episode One, everything like that. People walked out of the theater going, "Oh, that was not what I was expecting. That's not what I wanted."
Mhm.
But then you revisit it years later. Like now, everybody looks at movies like Episode One, they're like, "Oh, it's fantastic," or "It's great." You know, there's that sort of new perspective or seeing it with new eyes that really makes it look more, much better than it did at the time.
Of course.
So yeah, I appreciate that, you can see it that way as well, that it's something that is more than just, it's more than it is on the surface. And is
Mhm.
if you really watch it and you start to look deeper into the story they're telling, it's a really good story. And yeah, it follows a lot of those same tropes. It hits all the same marks that there are, but it does it well. And I think
Mhm.
that's what, makes it work.
Yeah. Well, we'll
Yeah.
definitely have to revisit some of the other cuts in a future episode.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So any last thoughts? Anything else you want to add about Waterworld? I think we talked quite a
No,
bit
I mean,
about.
I kind of liked your wrap up there because it had a lot of like stuff that could almost be considered puns, on the surface and deeper
Yes.
level.
Very good. It was not intentional.
Hmm. Just worked out that way.
Yeah, yeah, very good. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, thanks again for checking this out. And if
Yeah.
you have never seen Waterworld, check it out. I think you'll find it
Definitely.
more appealing, once you give it a look. And
Yeah.
we'll be back with something equally as controversial in our next episode.
We'll do. Take care, guys.
All right. Thanks.